Does it appear that there's no hope? Are there issues and problems in your life that you want to break away from and feel like you can't? Do you wonder, how can I be free from these issues that have destroyed my life? Well, my friend, I have the answer. Bible Way Hibner Memorial Church of God in Christ presents Chain Breakers, this and every Sunday at 9 a.m. here on WHYL.
This is WHYL Carlisle.
It's time now for the Real Estate Radio Guy with real estate broker John Rainville. For the next hour, you'll learn everything about national real estate topics, trends, and news revolving around Central PA. It's sponsored by Equity Prime Mortgage, Enviroquest Inspections, and SearchHomesInPA.com. And now, here's the Real Estate Radio Guy, John Rainville.
Good morning. It's John Rainville. I'm the host of the show, Real Estate Radio Guy, and I'm here this morning with Kingsley Harmer from Equity Prime. And today we've really got a lot of information-packed show. We're going to be covering where the real estate market is nationally and drill it down here into Pennsylvania. We're going to be talking about sales, prices, sales of new homes, lending, REO, and short sales, in-contract properties, interest rates, mold in homes, mega open houses, and more. So I wanted to really start off and talk about where the national market is today. Pending home sales have started to recover. We did have a little bit of a downspill there this summer, but we are catching back up. We're still ahead of 2015, so the market's pretty good. I know everyone's a little bit concerned here with the election and different things. And there was an interesting article on the Wall Street Journal the other day about the odds of the United States being in a recession within the next 12 months. And they actually polled 60 economists from across the country, and they're actually becoming more confident every month. July, it was 22% thought we might hit a recession. August down to 21. September dropped all the way down to 20%. So, our economy is improving. We're seeing sales still holding here in the local market. I wanted to give you a quote from Sean Bicchetti. He's actually the chief economist from Freddie Mac. And he said that the housing market remains a bright spot in the U.S. economy, with solid job gains and low mortgage interest rates sustaining the economy's momentum in September. In most markets, low mortgage rates have more than offset the rise in house prices, preserving home buyer affordability for the typical household. Homeowners are also taking advantage of low rates and house price appreciation that's increasing their home equity. And later here in the show, we're going to be talking more about that in the home equity and where things are, because the market right now, folks, is not acting normal. We usually say that we stack dominoes in as realtors. We will stack them in from left to right, going from low to high. But the market's actually being driven in reverse order right now, high to low, and we will be covering that. Pending home sales are definitely, we're running about 8 to 12% over what's considered to be a strong market. So that's all good news. Some interesting information, though, about the pending home sales. Here in the Northeast right now, we're leading the country. We have 5.9% better pending home sales over last year than anywhere else in the country. Right now, overall, the United States is just a tick down. The West is down, the South is down, the Midwest is down. And people say, well, why is the Northeast up, John? And I have to let you know, the reason is because we had more inventory. We're still trying to clear out some of those short sales. We're still trying to clear out some of the foreclosures in the market. So we had a little bit more homes for people to go out there, look at, and buy. And the other good thing is the existing prices, they're going up. Maybe not as much as what we'd like to see, but we're still seeing here in the Northeast, we're up about 1% over last year. We're not seeing the big home price changes that they are, of course, on the West Coast. They're up over like 9%. If you go to move down to Florida, it's almost 7%. And where you need to really think about that is if you're thinking about relocating anytime in the next 5 years, if you're going to be going to the West Coast or you're going to be going down to Florida, you may want to speed things up because you're going to be losing ground because they're appreciating double what we are. Where's the housing supply? We're still down about 10% of what the homes we need. And put that in perspective here with a rough number from the Harrisburg market. Typically, our Harrisburg market, greater Harrisburg market, we have about 6,000 properties on the market on any given day. And right now, we've been bouncing around the 4,200 mark for months now. So that means we only have we're down about a third of the homes that we would have for a normal market. And so the selection just isn't out there right now. We definitely need inventory. If you're thinking about selling, you really want to be reaching out to your realtor. My personal opinion is that one of the best times to sell is after Halloween all the way up through the Super Bowl. Because the people that come out to look at your home in that time period, they're serious lookers, folks. They're not tire kickers. I mean, you're not going to get your wife, if she's a Seahawks fan, to miss a playoff game in January to go look at homes. Should much rather be seeing that playoff game. New construction, it's definitely up. We're seeing that across the board nationwide. When you're driving around, drive through the new home communities, you're going to start to see more custom homes and more spec homes being thrown up. And that's good because that's where we pick up some of the inventory we need. Mortgage rates, according to CoreLogic chief economist, continue to remain relatively low, and the job growth continues as most forecasters expect, then home purchases are likely to rise in the coming year. We're seeing total family home sales. If we look at what everyone projects, and this isn't just from a realtor, but NAR, of course, is going to be bullish on the market. They think we're going to see a 6% increase next year. Fannie Mae thinks we're going to see a 6.2% increase next year. Freddie Mac thinks about 6.2. And then, the mortgage bankers are really bullish on next year. They're hoping for a 6.5% jump.
So if I'm a listener and I'm listening to you talk, what is NAR?
NAR is the National Association of Realtors. And a lot of times, I forget we talk in acronyms a lot of times, and people need to know that. We're seeing a different market. It's a different world. We all know, from the 70s to now, there's a definite change. We're seeing that more households are being formed than almost any time in history. And they're not your typical household formations. They're not, the typical married couple. I mean, I've sold homes lately to two retired women that were, wanted to save money, and they both bought a place. We're seeing, unmarried families move in together. We're seeing some generational housing come up with 1, 2, 3 families all living in the same home. So, properties with in-law quarters. Those are some of the homes that are on the market now that we need help to move. One of the big economists that everyone likes to listen to is Lawrence Young. And when we go to dinner, Kingsley and I call him Larry. But healthy labor markets in most of the country should be creating a sustained demand for home purchases. However, there's no question that after peaking in June, sales in the majority of the country have inched backwards, and that's because the inventory isn't picking up to tame down price growth and replace it with it being quickly sold. So we're starting to see, that the market's coming back. It's definitely good. And I know a lot of our listeners, you've owned your home for a while. And I'm going to give you a stunning, statistic. Right now, only 37% of Americans believe that they have 20% or more equity in their home. Yet over 72% actually have over 20% equity. And that's really becomes important because we need to get the market moving again. My suggestion is, if you have the ability and you have a lot of money sitting in your 401k or you have a lot of equity in your house, is to help your kids get in a house. I mean, we're at historically low interest rates, 3-4% interest rates. It's a phenomenal time for them to buy, and you're not getting that much money or return on anything right now, just about anywhere other than real estate.
Well, John, I think a lot of people have been hesitant on calling a realtor because they didn't think their house would sell or that they could sell it for enough. It might just be worth a phone call or even go to a website like Search Homes in PA and kind of get an idea what your home is worth today, because I think a lot of people just think it's not worth as much as it truly is, number one, and they're afraid to even list it on the market thinking they're not going to get enough to move out.
Yeah, and the way to find that out, folks, is to call a realtor and find out what your home's worth, and also at the same time call someone like Kingsley, get pre-approved for your financing so you're making sure that both ends of the transaction are solid. Because I know over the last 10 years, many people have had their credit dinged, and they just don't realize it. And those are things you want to clean up before your house sells, because you don't want to get into a homeless situation. But right now, great question there, with the inventory. What we consider a seller's market is when there's less than 6 months of inventory. And we consider a neutral market, when it takes 6 to 7 months to sell. And then we figure a buyer's market if it's taking more than 7 months to sell a home. What we are seeing is certain price ranges are a buyer's market. Definitely in our upper end price range, over $400,000 in our area, it's a buyer's market. There are some phenomenal deals out there. Over $400,000, you can get a great buy. In the mid-market, it's a little bit tighter. New construction's pretty much moving between $200,000 and $400,000. When we get under really about $125,000, if it's cleaned, it's going real fast. And that market here locally is those homes under about $1.25, folks. They're selling in 60 days or less. So that gives you some sort of the time range of where things are. Now, when I'm talking about reversing the dominoes, since we're short on the bottom end of the market, which is normally how the market moves. Somebody has a small starter home or a townhouse, and they decide, well, they're going to upgrade to, a $175,000 home, and then that person hopefully will move up to the 250s. Right now, we're seeing about 40% of the market, or a little bit more, they're definitely making a trade-up move. And about 25%, they're making a lateral move. Maybe they have a 2-story colonial, they're getting a little bit older, and a ranch is more their style, or they need that first floor bedroom. And then we're definitely seeing some that are definitely trading down. I know we have a customer right now, with the huge 2-story McMansion, and they really don't need it anymore. They're getting up in years, and they can really just live in a much smaller, 1-story ranch, and make the quality of life definitely go up. If your house is on the market right now, and I know we're talking about, sometimes we're seeing multiple offers, but if a realtor comes to you with a contingent offer, contingent upon them selling their home, my recommendation right now is going to be, yes, take the risk. You have nothing to lose by taking a contingent offer, and it may give them more time to sell their home. And that, if they're making a move down and they're up over that $400,000 range, they may need a little bit more time. And if they found your home, the perfect home, and they're giving you a good offer on it, don't just throw them to the wind because they have to sell their house, because they're making an offer on your home because they love it. And since we're starting to see the appreciation come back in the homes. For example, if you would have bought a $250,000 home at the beginning of this year, within 6 years, we're expecting that to increase in value almost $50,000. That's a substantial chunk of wealth that most people don't, if they don't own a home, definitely don't get a chance to make that money.
Well, and over the last, let's say, 10 years or so, it's been a scary market. So, if you bought a home in 2006, a lot of people were a little scared to buy a home because, the home's lost so much value over those years. You bought a home for $200,000, all of a sudden it's worth $170,000. It took that amount of time, to get to a point where we can safely and comfortably say, look, the market's moving in the right direction. Not only are the people that bought back then kind of back above water, so to speak, but those that have bought afterwards and got great deals have some significant equity.
Yes, and I travel like 27 counties here in Pennsylvania, and I can tell you the only area that I'm really seeing that is still definitely hammered from the recession is up there in like the Monroe County, Pike County area, because we have so many vacation homes that got foreclosed on because people kept their primary residences. So in some of those neighborhoods up there, we're still turning about a 40% vacancy rate. So, but everywhere else, down here in Central PA, because of our fantastic employment with the government and the state, it's just so good here and such a solid area. You can really feel pretty good about buying real estate.
And you're also basically saying that if you're thinking about a vacation home somewhere, maybe near the Poconos, now's the time to buy?
Oh, absolutely. You can get some really phenomenal buys. So later here in the show, we are going to be giving away a set of tickets to the comedy show there, courtesy of Boomerangs. And that's going to be for November 4th. And I really want everyone to get this number down straight. Some people texted me last week that they didn't get the number right. It's 717-249-1787. And we're going to be taking calls starting about 8:50 on that. And the question again is still going to be the same one it was last week. What do you call a boomerang that doesn't come back? And we're going to head to a break now. And when we come back, we're going to be talking some more things about the market and sales.
Buying or selling a home? For professional home inspection, call Enviroquest of Harrisburg. Their certified home inspectors will conduct a thorough inspection and provide a detailed report with many pictures. They'll explain the findings. Do you have elevated radon levels in your house? Call Enviroquest. They have fixed over 10,000 homes over the last 25 years. For a professional home inspection or radon mitigation, call Enviroquest at 233-6144, 233-6144, or visit Enviroquest online at evqharrisburg.com. That's evqharrisburg.com.
Hi, my name is John Rainville, a Pennsylvania, Maryland, and New York real estate broker and realtor. I'm your host for Real Estate Radio Guy. Our show is dedicated to local, state, and national real estate topics, trends, and news revolving around central Pennsylvania. We'll discuss the buying and selling process, mortgages, market conditions, property maintenance, commercial and investment real estate, and more. Real Estate Radio Guy is sponsored by Equity Prime Mortgage, Enviroquest Inspections, and SearchHomesInPA.com. Join us every Saturday morning from 8 to 9 on WHYL.
Buying or selling a home? For professional home inspection, call Enviroquest of Harrisburg. Their certified home inspectors will conduct a thorough inspection and provide a detailed report with many pictures. They'll explain the findings. Do you have elevated radon levels in your house? Call Enviroquest. They have fixed over 10,000 homes over the last 25 years. For a professional home inspection or radon mitigation, call Enviroquest at 233-6144, 233-6144, or visit Enviroquest online at evqharrisburg.com. That's evqharrisburg.com. Searching for a home online morning, noon, and night, looking at website after website, clicking contact me and nobody does? Missed homes that were sold before you knew they were for sale? The better choice is searchhomesinpa.com. Search if you want, or they'll do it for you. Contact by phone, email, or text to adjust your search or to tour a property. Start online. They'll call you back at searchhomesinpa.com or call toll free 855-919-HOME and they'll do it for you. Searchhomesinpa.com 855-919-4663.
Okay, well, we're back, and I want to give you that number again, 717-249-1787, because we are going to be giving away those comedy show tickets today.
And what's that question again, John?
That question is, what do you call a boomerang that doesn't come back? So dwell on that for a little bit, my friend. We're going to be talking here now a little bit more about what's going on in the sales arena here. And I'm going to try to drill that down to you a little bit more locally. In about 2 weeks, we're going to have a guy that really loves to crunch numbers come on the show and really delve into the overall Dauphin County, Cumberland County areas and give us some really good information on the numbers and where the market stands. But right now, in Pennsylvania, we're pretty fortunate because we're seeing average market times of about 60 days. So that's pretty good. Same thing in New York and Maryland. You get into some of the other states and they're a little bit quicker. And we still have some states that they're just dragging, and they still have too much inventory.
So here's a quick question then, John. You say the average days on the market is 60. So what happens if it's on the market for 90, 120? What does that mean? What is that a sign of?
That's a great question, Kingsley. Real estate is not rocket science. So I like to tell customers there are just limited facets that impact the sale of their house. Price, condition, and location. Location you can't change on your house. If the house is a mess or it needs work, you can do the repairs or you can clean it up. Because today's consumers want to find a house that's like model home clean. That's what they want. They aren't going to look beyond the clutter. They want it to be staged. But the big thing that you have that you can change is price. So if you're getting out there and you're on the market right now about 90 days or more, and you haven't made a price adjustment, you have to really look at it because that's your card to play right now. Reduce the price.
I think there's probably a little bit more to it than just price, although that's probably the main factor. The second thing is I would want to look at, how was my house marketed? Maybe sometimes a second opinion isn't the worst thing in the world to get if your house has been on the market that long. But like you said, I think staging is undervalued. If you have a borrower or a buyer, that are actively looking for a home, and let's say, for example, you're showing, houses and you show them 5. If they were to walk into a development where they're cookie cutter homes, what sets your house apart from the one next door if they're the same exact home?
Absolutely. And if you do have your home in the market, you want to get your agent to get you out to show you what the competition is. Actually go look at their homes. I mean, they can set up a showing and you can go and take a peek to see what you're competing against. Usually we figure it takes about 8 showings on average before we ever get an offer. And Kingsley, you're spot on. I mean, if the agent isn't doing heavy marketing right now, doing the Facebook, doing the internet, doing a single property website, there are just so many things that they can do that will drive traffic. One of the things our company does is we like to do mega open houses, which we hold on Saturdays and Sundays, usually from 11 to 2 or 1 to 3. And we're able to drive a tremendous amount of traffic through those 2 days, hoping to get enough foot traffic through the property to generate an offer by that Sunday, or if at the very worst, by the following Sunday.
Well, that makes perfect sense. And if you're not getting the traffic, again, another sign. I mean, you have a mega open house, and you're not getting anybody through the property, back to price.
Back to price, unless it's condition or curb appeal. Other than that, those are the main factors that we're seeing that are going to impact how fast your home sells. And, right now, we're seeing good buyer foot traffic through the open houses, people calling to see properties. That's all up. But what is down is what we call our seller foot traffic. We need more sellers calling us and having us come out, to do a comparative market analysis, figure out what their property is likely to sell for, help them get it in condition to sell, and get it on the market. Inventory is just key right now. We need much more inventory to keep the market going. And overall foot traffic, though, it's pretty good. I mean, for this time of the year, it's been extraordinarily strong from the end of the summer, when normally we would have seen a slowdown, and we haven't seen that yet. And I think a lot of that has to do with the interest rates. What do you think, Kingsley?
Well, the interest rates really haven't moved much. I mean, they're in the low to mid threes for a well qualified buyer. Of course, you have different programs available, but on a 30-year fixed, it's unreal to know that you can buy a home with that low of an interest rate and keep such an affordable payment for the rest of the life of the loan. This wasn't something you could do 10, 15 years ago. These rates just weren't this low. So right now is the time to buy, which means right now is the time to sell. So you've got a perfect storm in a lot of traffic. So you've got a lot of these people wanting to buy homes because of the low interest rates, and actually opening up as far as guidelines. It's easier to qualify now than it has been 5-6 years ago. So you do have more qualified buyers. You put that in the perfect storm with not many people understanding that they have this kind of equity in their current home. So you give them that comfort level to say, hey, look at all these people looking to buy. If you were even thinking about maybe wanting to sell your home, but were a little gun shy because you weren't sure it would sell for enough money, now's the time to at least find out. It doesn't hurt to make a phone call and find out.
And Kingsley, the credit requirements have sort of eased a little bit, right? I know a lot of people watch on the internet and they constantly think, well, my credit's not good. I don't have a 750 or it's below 800. And they hear that time and time again. What truly do they need credit score-wise?
If it were that simple, everybody would buy a home. But then again, that's what it was like back in 2004 and 2005. If you had a pulse, you pretty much qualified. So, yeah, I think a lot of people did become afraid of trying to qualify or were afraid of getting turned down. But it's not even like that anymore. I mean, the credit requirements for your standard FHA and traditional conventional mortgages have come back down. I don't want to say as long as you have that credit score, but you can go down as low as 580 now for your traditional financing. There's a lot of other factors obviously involved with that, per individual. But here's the beautiful sign of where our market is going. There are alternative programs. It used to be called subprime. I hate to use that word, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of alternative programs starting to creep back into the market that for somebody that is a strong borrower that doesn't maybe necessarily fit those, perfect Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac guidelines can still qualify for a home today. So it's always worth making a phone call to find out. Get qualified, especially at this time in the market where the homes are out there. It's a great time to buy, obviously a great time to sell. It's really coming back to, I think, somewhere of a normal market again.
And I think we're starting to get back to where we were before last year when we had the RESPA rules change, which is the Real Estate Settlements Protection Act. So our days to close a loan are coming back in line, where this time last year we were sort of projecting 90 days for a closing, and that sort of slowed down our fourth quarter sales last year. But about where are we now on average?
Well, I would say a good average is 45 days. Every home, every purchase, every transaction has its own scenarios. We can go as little as 3 weeks. If you need to, obviously you need to have all your paperwork in. And, there's complicated transactions if you're doing 1031 exchanges and, you're bringing in retirement funds and trying to liquidate funds, et cetera. Sometimes they can go as high as 60 days. But on average, 45 days, which is not a lot of time. You could put an offer in today and before Christmas be in a home.
Just want to touch back there, to people that are sitting out there listening today and, you've been in your home 25 or 30 years. I'm really recommending that you reach out to a realtor, if you're have any inkling of making a move up, a move down, a lateral move, trying to get into a home with no stairs, or to help your kid or your grandkids get into a home, because this time it's just unbelievable how good it is out there for them, and they're going to be so much better off than renting. We're going to be heading here to a break, and when we come back, we're going to be looking for John Staz to be talking with us about mold today. Because mold a few years ago, we never heard about it, but it has become just a major component in the real estate transaction anymore. So I want to give you that phone number again, 717-249-1787, to call in for the tickets for the comedy club. Or if you have a question for Kingsley and I, we'd love to, give you our, personal opinion on it. So again, 717-249-1787. We'll be back shortly. Hi, my name is John Rainville, a Pennsylvania, Maryland, and New York real estate broker and realtor. I'm your host for Real Estate Radio Guy. Our show is dedicated to local, state, and national real estate topics, trends, and news revolving around central Pennsylvania. We'll discuss the buying and selling process, mortgages, market conditions, property maintenance, commercial and investment real estate, and more. Real Estate Radio Guy is sponsored by Equity Prime Mortgage, Enviroquest Inspections, and SearchHomesInPA.com. Join us every Saturday morning from 8 to 9 on WHYL.
Searching for a home online morning, noon, and night, looking at website after website, clicking contact me and nobody does? Missed homes that were sold before you knew they were for sale? The better choice is SearchHomesInPA.com. Search if you want, or they'll do it for you. Contact by phone, email, or text to adjust your search or to tour a property. Start online. They'll call you back at SearchHomesInPA.com or call toll-free 855-919-HOME and they'll do it for you. SearchHomesInPA.com, 855-919-4663.
Hi, this is Kingsley Harmer with Equity Prime Mortgage. Equity Prime is excited to announce its grand opening here in Central PA. Equity Prime Mortgage is an aggressive, direct lender licensed in 45 states and D.C. Join me as we discuss different topics such as qualifying, budgeting, and savings, and find out why we are able to offer better rates and qualify more clients. Equity Prime is currently hiring experienced loan officers in the Central PA area. If you feel you are qualified, please call 717-200-4800.
Hi, my name is John Rainville, a Pennsylvania, Maryland, and New York real estate broker and realtor. I'm your host for Real Estate Radio Guy. Our show is dedicated to local, state, and national real estate topics, trends, and news revolving around central Pennsylvania. We'll discuss the buying and selling process, mortgages, market conditions, property maintenance, commercial and investment real estate, and more. Real Estate Radio Guy is sponsored by Equity Prime Mortgage, Enviroquest Inspections, and SearchHomesInPA.com. Join us every Saturday morning from 8 to 9 on WHYL. WHYL.
Hi, this is Kingsley Harmer with Equity Prime Mortgage. Equity Prime is excited to announce its grand opening here in Central PA. Equity Prime Mortgage is an aggressive, direct lender licensed in 45 states and D.C. Join me as we discuss different topics such as qualifying, budgeting, and savings, and find out why we are able to offer better rates and qualify more clients. Equity Prime is currently hiring experienced loan officers in the Central PA area. If you feel you are qualified, please call 717-200-4800. And we're back. So I started this little segment last week that I like to call This Week in History. And for those of you that have not been following the news, we've got a little bit of a growing situation over in Syria with Russia and England and the rest of NATO. And they've sent warships towards Syria very slowly. Almost like a parade of sorts. It's hard to tell anymore whether or not it's show or whether or not it's real. But I found it interesting because this day in history, in 1962, in a televised speech, President John F. Kennedy announced that the U.S. spy planes have discovered Soviet missile bases in Cuba. So the missile sites under construction, but not nearing completion, housed medium-range missiles capable of striking a number of major cities in the United States. So for those of us that were not around back then, it's kind of interesting. Here we are, X amount of years later, that we're almost maybe facing a very similar situation, and God forbid we're able to rectify this in a calm and safe manner. But now what we do is we've got, I think we have John Staz on the line, and we're going to talk about some mold. John, are you there?
John will be with us in just a second here. We're going to be talking about different things on the mold. One thing I want to ask John is whether mildew is a form of mold. I'm not quite sure. I mean, we used to hear about mildew, but now everyone's talking about mold. I mean, you probably seen mildew and things like that in your house, some of that green-looking stuff, and now we're seeing more of the black mold around in many of the properties. So,
in my orange juice.
In your orange juice, yeah. I think you're supposed to change that every once in a while.
I'm thinking so.
Free antibiotics.
John, are you there?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning, John.
Hey, John. We're excited to have you back on the show. Hey, we're talking with you today about mold, and can you give us sort of like an idea? Well, one, how you test for it, and then we've got some questions for you about it.
Sure. Generally, the testing involves we take an outside sample to get a background because there's a lot of naturally occurring mold, so we want to separate that out from our results. So we take an outside sample. It gives us a baseline. And if we find something that's elevated outside and then it's elevated in the home, we can say, hey, that's probably coming from outside. Then we'll take the inside sample, and if something's elevated on the inside but it's low on the outside, then that shows us what's colonized in the house.
John, how do you take that sample? I mean, are we talking we wipe onto a surface, or how do you get that sample?
There's several different ways to sample, depending on what your objective is. We use a high volume air pump with a cassette that has a filter, so to speak, that is graduated. So the filter. We run the air through the filter for a certain volume of air, and then we send that to the lab. Then they actually look at it under a microscope, and they can calculate the airborne concentration and the different types of mold by looking at the actual spores and counting them.
Now, John, I mean, is it normal for mold to be outside?
Yes, there's a lot of normal mold outside. It's naturally occurring in especially in agricultural areas or areas where there's a lot of trees and plants.
And, I know like with radon, when we were talking with you about radon the other day, I know there's like a government standard. Is there a government standard yet for what's an acceptable amount of mold or anything like that?
I'm not aware of a government standard, but when we do our sampling, our laboratory will, they color code the result, and it'll tell you what type of mold it is, what the characteristics are, what the health effects are in general, and then it gives you like a color coding, like this is moderate, this is low, this is elevated. So it gets pretty complex because the molds can vary in levels. Like let's say, it's a rainy day and there's a lot of humidity in the air. One certain type of mold might take off, then a week later everything dries out, so the spore level might be reduced then. But so that's one of the things about mold is when you take a sample, it's for the date and on that day what existed at the property.
John, is it? We used to hear about it. We were mentioning it here earlier before you came online with us. Mildew is what we used to hear about. So now is mildew a form of mold?
Yeah, it's all microbial growth. There's different levels. Mildew, a lot of times you associate that with, maybe in the bathroom it's growing on surfaces. Maybe there's not, the vent fan's not enough CFM, not getting enough air out of the bathroom. So it's all microbial growth, and it's very similar. It's just a different term. The next stage, basically you have mold/mildew, and then you have fungus. The distinction between those two is fungus will actually grow into the surface and damage the surface and rot it. Mold, generally speaking, mold can be wiped off the surface. It's dimensional and it grows on the surface.
So fungus is worse than mold?
Well, fungus is the next. It's all natural phenomena. So the fungus will actually damage, like you'll see a fungus on wood, you get the mushrooms growing out of it. Usually there's rot associated with fungus, whereas mold, generally speaking, would be on the surface.
So from a health from a health standpoint, if I'm a homeowner and I walk into a room that I haven't been in 6 months, which means I have too big of a house that I need to sell, what is the first sign that I should be worried? I mean, what am I looking for as a homeowner? I mean, I've heard all of these horror stories. Oh my God, you got black mold, you're all going to die, you're going to get sick and go to the hospital. What sort of signs, would I, as a homeowner, see that I should say, oh my God, I got to call John and find out whether I got a problem here?
Yeah, your biggest asset as a homeowner to tell you something's wrong is your nose. Your nose is actually a very sensitive instrument to tell you there's a problem. And, that comes from our survival instinct. Your nose will tell you something's wrong. A moldy smell. Sometimes there's elevated mold, like severely elevated. You walk into that. I'm sure, John, you've had this before. You walk into a basement and your body just says, I got to get out of here because it's such a strong smell of mold. So just follow your nose. As far as, the first indicators are usually the smell, and sometimes you can see it as well. So.
And I know a lot of the health issues are respiratory issues. I know a lot of times if you have the mold in the house, the kids again get affected, it seems, before the parents. John, what are some of the common areas when you're out there doing these home inspections, other than the basement where you might see it? And yes, I've been in some of those basements where we've seen, actually I've seen a rainbow of colors. Of things that I'm not a professional, but that I'm assuming are mold. I've seen the black fuzzy stuff on the walls. I've even seen like a white, almost looks like cotton candy coming down from joists and stuff. Can you give us an idea what some of the actual physical, what it looks like a lot of times?
Yeah. Well, of course, mold needs two things to proliferate. It needs food, which we find on a lot of the building products, and then it needs moisture. So, commonly, a place we commonly find mold is in the basement, where too much moisture is getting in through walls and whatnot. You talked about the black mold. That's commonly found on drywall. A lot of times people call us and say they think they have mold and they have what's called efflorescence, which is the white cotton candy type of stuff that commonly grows on block. And that's actually moisture comes through the block and it takes some of the minerals out of the block and it makes like the white cotton candy type of stuff on the block. The way you can tell that is if you look at that closely, you can see it's actually like a crystal or a salt. Then you know it's not mold, and it's almost always on the masonry block. Another common place is in the attic. A lot of times there's several different ways you can get up into your attic. One of the most common ways is when heated air from the house, the warm air carries a lot of moisture. When it goes up into the attic, especially during the winter when it's cooler, it will release that moisture and condense onto, say, the roof sheeting. You know, the roof sheeting might get cold during the winter. Then that warm air from the heated house is finding an avenue up into the attic, and then it condenses. You get mold that way as well.
So, John, I think I've been in houses and I've seen that. So a lot of times, you know, you might be in the first or the second floor, and sort of like where the ceiling meets the top of the wall or in the corners, you'll see like dark discolored areas where it's actually trapping that.
Yeah, at the corners like you speak of, you know, that's our general construction. That's a weak point because, you know, you go to the middle of the second floor, you know, maybe you have a foot of insulation above that, but as you get to the corner, if they don't use a heeled truss or a truss where they can get the full thickness of the insulation the whole way to the corner, you have a cold spot at that corner. So, you know, you get that cold spot, and once again, where you have the warm air meeting the cold surface, water will condense, and then mold can form at that corner. Another thing that can happen at the corners as well is you can get certain phenomena related, like during the winter when ice builds up in the gutters. That during ice storms or when it's freezing out, ice builds up, and then during the day it melts. During the night it freezes again, and it'll push back under the shingles. It's called ice damming, and that's responsible for a lot of stains at that corner where there's a gutter on the outside.
Well, it certainly sounds like there's a lot of different areas that you need to kind of be aware of. So we're going to take a quick break, John. When we come back, we want to talk to you about maybe some treatment and possible ways to prevent mold in a home. But when we do come back, again, as a reminder, we've got 2 tickets to the comedy show.
November 4th.
What is it?
November 4th.
November 4th. Boomerangs in New Cumberland, the Comedy Zone. So be prepared with the answer to this question.
What do you call a boomerang that doesn't come back?
And when you have that answer, call in 249-1787. Again, that is 249-1787. We'll be right back.
Buying or selling a home? For professional home inspection, call Enviroquest of Harrisburg. Their certified home inspectors will conduct a thorough inspection and provide a detailed report with many pictures. They'll explain the findings. Do you have elevated radon levels in your house? Call Enviroquest. They have fixed over 10,000 homes over the last 25 years. For a professional home inspection or radon mitigation, call Enviroquest at 233-6144, 233-6144, or visit Enviroquest online at evqharrisburg.com. That's evqharrisburg.com.
Hi, my name is John Rainville, a Pennsylvania, Maryland, and New York real estate broker and realtor. I'm your host for Real Estate Radio Guy. Our show is dedicated to local, state, and national real estate topics, trends, and news revolving around central Pennsylvania. We'll discuss the buying and selling process, mortgages, market conditions, property maintenance, commercial and investment real estate, and more. Real Estate Radio Guy is sponsored by Equity Prime Mortgage, Enviroquest Inspections, and SearchHomesInPA.com. Join us every Saturday morning from 8 to 9 on WA RealStateRadio.com.
Buying or selling a home? For professional home inspection, call Enviroquest of Harrisburg. Their certified home inspectors will conduct a thorough inspection and provide a detailed report with many pictures. They'll explain the findings. Do you have elevated radon levels in your house? Call Enviroquest. They have fixed over 10,000 homes over the last 25 years. For a professional home inspection or radon mitigation, call Enviroquest at 233-6144, 233-6144, or visit Enviroquest online at evqharrisburg.com. That's evqharrisburg.com. Searching for a home online morning, noon, and night, looking at website after website, clicking contact me and nobody does? Missed homes that were sold before you knew they were for sale? The better choice is searchhomesinpa.com. Search if you want, or they'll do it for you. Contact by phone, email, or text to adjust your search or to tour a property. Start online. They'll call you back at searchhomesinpa.com or call toll free 855-919-HOME and they'll do it for you. Searchhomesinpa.com, 855-919-4663.
Okay, and we're back with John Staz from Enviroquest. And John, how do you treat mold? That's one of the questions Kingsley and I are wondering.
Sure. There's, depending on what surface it's on, there's different ways to treat it. As a general rule, like any water-damaged building materials you want to remove, something like drywall, that's usually removed. A wood surface, it can be cleaned and then what's called encapsulated, where they put a coating that locks down any remaining mold into the surface and then seals it so that no spores can get out of the surface.
So I've been in some homes where they've torn out the drywall in the basement, and then they have the studs showing, and then the studs are like painted with something. Is that what you mean by encapsulating?
Yeah. The wood studs are encapsulated. What that does, it basically seals the surface. So any, wood, of course, is porous. So any of the spores that they couldn't get out are sealed into the wood to make it a safe wood piece again.
So John, how expensive is it to have a mold test done with you, where you come out and do this air test?
For us, what we do is we'll come out and the air test is $275. That includes an evaluation and an inside sample and an outside sample. And what I like to do is also look at the building science aspect of it. Where's the mold coming from? So you don't get into a situation where we look at it, we say, hey, there's a problem here, and then you get the problem cleaned up, and then a couple years later it just comes back. So we try to go around and look at the grading, look at where the possible sources are, and bring some instruments to take moisture readings and things like that so that we can give you more information than just whether you have mold or not. A lot of times, if you can actually see the mold, then it's doubtful a lot of times whether do you even need a test. Hey, you can see it, just get it cleaned up. The scarier scenario is where you can't see it, but you can smell it. Then that's where it takes some investigative work to find out, what's the nature of the problem, how severe is it, and that's where the instruments and the physical investigation of the property can tell us some more information so it can be properly cleaned up, and then the root of the problem can be solved as well.
Okay. Well, John, if they want to reach out to you to find out more about a home inspection or mold test or radon test or water test, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with us is our phone, 717-233-6144, or our website, evqharrisburg.com.
Okay, fantastic. We really appreciate your time today, and we'll be looking forward to next week.
Okay, great. Looking forward to it. Thanks.
All right. So one more time. What do you call a stick?
No, you gave the answer.
I gave the answer. Oh my gosh!
What are you doing?
Oh, my gosh.
So now you just need a caller.
So what do you call the stick that doesn't come back then?
I think it's still a stick.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Well, I guess I just screwed up. So now all we need is the first caller to call in, and I guess they're going to get 2 tickets to Boomerangs for the show on November 4th.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know how much easier I can make it, John. So all right. So if anybody's been listening, what do you call a boomerang that doesn't come back? And the phone number to call is 249-1787. That's 249-1787. So we've talked a lot about the market conditions and the amount of inventory that we actually have available. And, there's a lot of questions with regards to, whether or not they should call a realtor. Can you sell it on your own? And I'm going to dive into that in just a second. But I think we actually have a caller on the phone that might have the answer to the trivia question.
If they don't have the answer, they're buying us drinks tonight.
All right. Do we have the caller?
I guess you do.
Why, hello there. All right. So the big question then, it was a stumper. So what do you call a boomerang that doesn't come back?
Well, my answer would be a stick.
Wow.
And that wasn't what you guys, told me. I just knew it.
Well, that's perfect. That's awesome. And what's your name?
Bonnie Keller.
Hi, Bonnie. How are you? What we're going to do is have you hold the line right here, and we'll get some information from you, get some tickets, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right.
So, Bonnie, you didn't have to Google it, did you?
No, I didn't. Sitting here listening to all the mold and everything, waiting to call you, so I didn't have time to Google.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Uh-huh.
All right. So after a show like this, again, I think a lot of people were not aware that so many people had this much equity in their home. So, the question is from a buying and or selling experience, is working with a real estate agent worth it? In this particular aspect, obviously I'm going to have to say yes, because if they weren't even aware of the market and the fact that there are so many buyers out there looking for homes right now.
A realtor, a good, solid agent, brings so much value to the equation. Many people just don't realize that we're in tune with everything that's going on. We're really watching things and trying to see where the trends are, where the market's going, and to make the very best possible recommendations to our customers, whether they're buyers or sellers, Kingsley.
So you don't have to use a realtor, right? I mean, there's all these websites out there that you can stick your house on the market for by yourself and sell it. But I've done some investigation on that, and what's the average time that a home sits on the market for sale by owner? And it's not marketed correctly or not even priced correctly.
Well, according to National Association of Realtor statistics, most homes that were for sale by owner and get listed with a realtor sell for about 8% more than what the for sale by owner thinks they were going to get. And it is done usually in a much timelier fashion. But anymore, Kingsley, you have to give the buyer of your home a seller's property disclosure. And that would probably make a really good show for us to talk about what the seller needs to disclose to a prospective buyer by state law, or it could come back to haunt them.
And that's whether they're selling it on their own or not. And this is one of the reasons that you need a realtor to, steer you along the path of selling a home.
Absolutely. A good realtor is like a Sherpa. Our job is to keep you warm at night and make sure that you don't fall off the cliff. We have so much experience into things like the home inspections that John Staz was talking about and common problems. I was talking with a gentleman the other day all the way up in Whitehaven, which is south of Wilkes-Barre, who actually was for sale by owner. And, he's, talking to him about putting his house on the market. His house is vacant. And I asked him what he was going to do about his septic inspection, because now you have to bring in a truck of pool water to test the system. And that's some of the things that we're going to have to go through on that seller's property disclosure show.
Yeah, and that's just one of the many reasons, obviously, to use a realtor. But, at the same time, it's not as simple as, oh, well, a friend of mine is a realtor, and, he does it part-time, and, he works at 7-Eleven during the day, and, that's actually going to, I think, end up costing you quite a bit. So I think we're going to talk about in the future, what you should look for in a realtor, and why it's important and why it's going to cost you more money to, either sell it on your own or just go with the first realtor that you see. So we're going to have that topic and many more coming up in the following weeks. Again, if you guys ever have any questions, give us a call here at the radio station while we're on the air, 249-1787. Again, that's 249-1787. We'll be back next week.
Well,